The sugya of Tisha B'Av this year is it's a gigantic sugya. Erev Tisha B'Av is Shabbos. Tisha B'Av is not a nitche, and the whole Erev Tisha B'Av is a whole different looking Tisha B'Av. The whole Tisha B'Av, the whole Erev Tisha B'Av is a different looking Erev Tisha B'Av. I suppose that we should start the shir with a tefillah and a bakasha that we say to the Bein, if already the Erev Tisha B'Av, all of the rules have been isbatel, and Erev Tisha B'Av is already nitche, and we're holding that the Erev Tisha B'Av, there's no Sudas Matzekes. The entire tzur is different. We'll all be wearing Shabbos clothing this Shabbos. We'll be singing Zmiris, Hashem, Shabbos, Abenim Abbas. So imkvar, if it's already kaven de itche, if the Erev Tisha B'Av is nitche, so kaven de itche, like we find in the Gemara many times. If kvar Erev Tisha B'Av is nitche, there's a halavai vet shein taki that the Tisha B'Av will be shein doiche. And then Vez Hashem, with Hashem, like we keep on saying, the next year will be Hilchos Kodshim, Hilchos Tumah V'Tayra. But until then, it's mutal aleinu to learn the sugya, and maybe the sugya itself, the limud will be yotzei the etzem halachas with the limud of the halachas, and not to actually be mekayim these halachas the poil. So we're going to go Bez Hashem Kiseder. We'll try to go from the where we are right now to a certain extent, the Shavua she'ein achal bay, this week of the 9 days. We'll go from there. We'll get into Erev Tisha B'Av Mamish. We'll get into the Shabbos, and then Mit Hashem, we'll talk about something about the Tisha B'Av and the Mighty Tisha B'Av and whatever we can be machnes. I'll try to stick to that Seder Advarim. It's a lot. And Mit Hashem, whatever we cover. Whatever we're not covering, Halavai will be nitcha anyways. So the Maisa, the first idea is that this week is very miyuchid because it's the 9 days, which is not the Shvuah Shechal Bay. In a year when Tisha B'Av is nitcha, the Hainu Shabbos is Tisha B'Av, and Sunday, Shabbos is Tisha B'Av and pushed till Sunday. So then there's a big shaila in the Paiskim if this week has a din of Shvuah Shechal Bay or not, which has its chumras. For the Svardim, it has the halachas. For the Ashkenazim, it has certain chumras. But this year, the Mishabura brings down the halachas in the Tavkuf Nun Aleph Tzikot and Lamed Ches that there is no din of Shvuah Shechal Bay. Now, what's the nafkamina? The Ashkenazim, anyways, are machmir on the 9 days. So what's the nafkamina? If we call it a Shvuah Shechal Bay, if we call it not a Shvuah Shechal Bay, so there are common nafkaminas. And that was with the Marmakoimis I sent to the Oilam. So, for example, yesterday I received a phone call from a lady who told me that she has a 5-year-old daughter, and the child wasn't matzliach at night, and unfortunately, her sheets are now all wet, and she wants to know. The thought that comes to mind about why it would be mutter to wash the sheets is because, sorry, we needed air conditioning here in Yerushalayim, but the first thought of why you'd be allowed to wash the sheets is because it's a davar avid. You know, if you're going to leave the stain on the sheet for an entire week, it'll be a davar avid, and it can get ruined, the sheet, etc. Maisa, davar avid is not such a pasha heter if that would apply over here. But the Mishabura tells us, and the Chayyadam brings down in Klal Kuf Lamed Gimel Sif Yud Ches, that kippos of begadim and levisha of begadim mechubis, wearing clean laundry, etc. Even though we have a minig that we don't do laundry the course of the 9 days, but for the purpose of children, we're not as machmir unless it's Shvuah Shechal Bay. When it's not Shvuah Shechal Bay, the Mishabura brings down that we're much more makel. So this is a good example. The Mishabura brings down, and it's cut and pay base, that this would be a very good example that the child is 5, so it's not a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old with pashut for makel. A 5-6-year-old is a little bit more of a shayla, but b'kai govna, we are makel because since it's not a Shvuah Shechal Bay, certainly we can be makel. In this case, I was makel that she's able to wash the sheet and she'd be able to wash the clothing that would be needed for a child of that age because there's no Shvuah Shechal Bay. Another halacha that would come out this year is brought in the Mishabura in Tavkuf Nun Aleph Tzikot and Chavtes. But even though normally when it comes to Shvuah Shechal Bay, we're a bit more machmer, but this year there's no Shvuah Shechal Bay. So if a person would run out of clothing, for example, he's totally schwitzed out of all of his clothing, it would be begeder ein loy begadim. So if it would be Shvuah Shechal Bay, we might not be makel to do a laundry. But Mashen came for this person, if he has only one, he has no more clothing. He has no more clothing, so then we would even be makel. We would be makel this year that he would be able to launder certain clothing in order for him to have clothing because it's not Shvuah Shechal Bay. The mice, the gabe nails, the place can bring down different chumras about cutting nails. There's a taz in Tavkuf Nun Aleph Tzikot and Gimel that the Shartzim brings down in Tzikot and Chav Zayin. But this year, it's no Shvuah Shechal Bay, so you're allowed to cut your nails this week. That means if a lady would potentially want to do a manicure or something like that, so then this year she'd be allowed to because there is no shmur shechalva. Yesterday I was asked by a kala, she has to do certain nail treatments and whatnot. This year, first of all, she's a kala, so we'd probably be makel anyways. But this year there's no shaila because there's no shmur shechalva, so therefore we'd be makel for her to do it. Legabe a haircut for a bal bris on a year where there's a shmur shechalva, it's a ganta shaila. It's a ganta shaila, but this year there's no shmur shechalva, so a bal bris is allowed to take a haircut. That means the sandik, that means the parents, the male will be allowed to take a haircut, etc. Because there is no shmur shechalva. It's interesting. Yesterday I was asked from somebody who's making a pigeon aben, is he allowed to take a haircut? I rather thought that it's mutter, and I looked in the pigeon aben Hilchos, and he says it's mutter. Then I found afterwards that the some sefer brings down as a davar pashut that not. So I guess that has to be the halacha. He said that the only after of taking haircuts for a bal bris is a bal bris, mila, something yuchad about a bris mila. You must get a pigeon aben not. I suppose that's the minig that you don't take a haircut for a pigeon aben, even in this year where there's no shmur shechal by the chayra. Agabe asudas bris mila and pigeon aben and siyim, etc. All of those types of things. So we know that the Mishnah Berurah makes chalukim. If it's a siyim, that it's the type of people that you always invite or not always invite or whatnot. And he's a lot more mitzamtzim on who you're allowed to invite to a siyim in a year of a shvur shechal bayit. But this year that it's not a shvur shechal bayit, so then the halacha is anybody that would normally be mishtatif in the suda, so we would let him eat meat and wine. Anybody that's normally be mishtatif in the suda, we're going to let him eat meat and wine because there's no shvur shechal. Very interesting shaila that I had this year was in the Geda Oilam probably, that there's a difference between America and Eretz Yisrael. What's the difference between America and Eretz Yisrael? This year, Daf Yomi, if I'm not mistaken, finished Yuma last Thursday. So I got to ask the shaila from somebody in Eretz Yisrael, can he make a siyum on Sunday? That was his question. And then I got asked from the fellow in America, could he make a siyum on Sunday? Same question, same masechta. They're both learning Yuma, and as a matter of fact, they're chavrusas. He is as a father and a son. They learn together every night on Zoom or something like that. And he wanted to know, could he make a siyum? The father lives in America. I told him he's allowed to make a siyum on Sunday. The son lives in Eretz Yisrael. I told him he's not allowed to make a siyum on Sunday. Yoisher, what's the chiluk between this person and that person? So I thought like this. You can tell me what you guys think if you agree. I thought that in Eretz Yisrael, when a person finishes a masechta on a Thursday, for example, so when's he going to make a siyum? So he'll make the siyum on Thursday night. Why would he push it till Sunday? You know, no reason. In Eretz Yisrael, Sunday is a regular working day. There's nothing about a Sunday. Sunday koilel's normal, everything business as usual. No, if you finish the siyum, if you finish the masechta on Friday, so many people, they'll make the siyum on Sunday because you're not making a siyum on a Friday or something like that. Okay. In America, a person that finishes the masechta on a Shabbos, on a Thursday, I think it's a very normal thing that he would push off the siyum until Sunday, because Sunday is a type of a time when everybody's together and everybody's around. And it's, I don't know, in America, it was, from what I remember in the Haim, it was Shabbos Sheni Shalgolius, if I'm not mistaken. I think some of you guys know what I'm talking about. So Mamela, I told the father, for you, it's a normal thing to take a siyum on a Thursday and push it to a Sunday. But for your son, that it's not a normal thing, he would make a siyum. He's not going to push it to Sunday. Elamai is only doing it because of the 9 days. No, so that is no heter. That is no heter. And even if it's a shvur shechal, even if it's not a shvur shechal, that was what I thought. And I thought you would enjoy the idea. That's my idea. Okay, so that's a Baisai. The Maisa, that's klape, the halachas of the non-existent shvur shechal of this year. Erev Shabbos Kodesh Chazoim. So first of all, the gabe tasting the food. Are you allowed to be toyim the Michael on Erev Shabbos? You have to toyim the cholent and whatnot. So the basic halacha is based on the Mishnah Berurah and Siman Tavkuf Samach Zayin and Sivkot and Vav. The Mishnah Berurah over there is talking about the gabe a fast day. So the halacha is you're allowed to be toiling. You put it into your mouth and then you spit it out just to check if there's enough salt or not enough salt or whatnot. That's the Maisa. What's the minig Ashkenazim? That's what we do. The gabe, the halachas of the of polishing shoes. The minig is yes to polish shoes. We covered Shabbos Kodesh. The Maisa on everybody knows today. The minig in Klal Yisrael is that you wear Shabbos clothing. So I won't go into that. Whatever the minhagim are, the minig is you do wear Shabbos clothing today. And that's what everybody's going to do. The Gabe, the halachas of Zmiris on this Shabbos. Shabbos is Erev Tisha B'Av, but it's Shabbos, and Shabbos is Kodim. So the Gabe Zmiris, if a person sings L'chadoidi b'derek klal, so then Avada sings L'chadoidi on this Shabbos. Comes again the Goyim of Moshe and Chelek Dalet and Simon Kufi Beis. And says, let's say you have people, they don't usually sing Zmiris. It's not normal for them to sing Zmiris, It's not his thing. He doesn't sing Zmiris or whatnot. No. So nice. And this year he decides on Shabbos Tisha B'Av he wants to sing Zmiris. Is he allowed to? Or maybe the only reason you're allowed to sing Zmiris is because you're ruggled to sing Zmiris. Says the Goyim of Moshe, even if you're not ruggled to sing Zmiris, you're still going to be allowed to sing Zmiris, even in Shalosh Shudas, which is right before the Tainis. So this year, the person wants to sing Zmiris on Shabbos. He's certainly allowed to sing Zmiris on Shabbos, and he should sing Zmiris on Shabbos. That's what you do. That's what you do. Even in Shalosh Shudas, the person sings Zmiris. The Gabe saying HaRav reminds me, in the Hain, whenever there was a Shaila HaRav, big fights in the shul. He has to say HaRav, not to say HaRav. All the different times of HaRav. So they once went over to an old man in the shul, and they asked him, "No tachlis geret." Everyone says, "Yeah, you do say HaRav, you don't say HaRav." So they went over to an Alta Yid and they said to him, "No, zog metake. What's the event in the Hain? What was the mice in the Hain? Did they say HaRav or they didn't say HaRav?" This Alta Yid, he thought for him and he said, "I tell you one thing. In the Hain, they used to fight about it, whether you say HaRav or not. But there's no fight this year. The halacha is you do say HaRav this Shabbos. The Maisa, you do say HaRav. The person that goes to the mikvah on Shabbos, this Shabbos, is also allowed to go to the mikvah. I am in the Shus Yankiv, in Simon Tovkuf and Aleph, in Simchat and Gimel. The Gabe meat and wine. The halacha is an incredible halacha. The halacha is that there's no chiyuv to have Shabbos to have meat and wine. In general, there's no chiyuv to be having meat and wine on Shabbos. It's a mitzvah, says the Shulchan Aruch, to have meat and wine in general on Shabbos. But you're not allowed to not have meat and wine because of avelus reasons. You're not allowed to dafka not have meat and wine because you want to have some sense of avelus. So over here, you're not allowed to not have meat and wine. The person is mechuyev he can't say he's mechuyev to have meat and wine because there's no chuyev ever on Shabbos to have meat and wine. But akapani, you're not allowed to bedafka not be having meat and wine on Shabbos because of avelus purposes. So certainly a person has to have meat and wine, and he's even allowed to eat meat and wine at Shalosh Shudas, even though most of us, Kimat all of us, never eat meat and wine at Shalosh Shudas. But at Shalosh Shudas, as long as it's still Shkia, he's allowed to have meat, he's allowed to have wine, and the Maisa, Shabbos is business as usual. This is the Etzim Halacha. The Gabe Tiyul on Shabbos, it is Roy. The Birkei Yosef brings down the Tavkuf Nun Gimel and Sivkot and Hey, that you don't go for a Tiyul on Shabbos after Chatzos. Somewhat of a more serious time, we'll call it. It's not a sad time. It's somewhat more of a serious time, I suppose. That's the Hagdara. Some have a Hanhaga that they don't go for a Tiyul the whole Shabbos Chazayin, but that's already to a certain extent maybe a Chumrah, and I'm not sure if one has to be noyig like that. We got Limanat Torah. Everyone knows that in a regular year, when Tisha B'Av falls in the middle of the week, so then there's a big machlokes whether or not you're allowed to learn the Dvarim Mutar, the Dvarim Aragilim, Baba Kama, Baba Basra, Baba Matzia, the regular Masechtas. Are you allowed to learn them on Erev Tisha B'Av? And Tisha B'Av itself, of course, you're only allowed to learn the Dvarim HaRayim. What's it in on Erev Tisha B'Av? Is a person on Erev Tisha B'Av only allowed to learn the Dvarim HaRayim, Eicha and Yirmiyo and Moitkatin, all the regular things that people know what you learn on Tisha B'Av, Gittin, etc. Just not the idea of a lot of people they learn about on Tisha B'Av, they learn Hilchos Avelis, and they learn this. Maybe it's not. Maybe a person learns Yirmiyo. Yirmiyo, this is something that during the year, how many people learn Yirmiyo? Learn Yirmiyo on Nakapanim. The Shaila is, what about on Erev Tisha B'Av? On Erev Tisha B'Av, in a regular year, there's a big machlekes between the Paiskim if you are allowed to learn regular things or only the Dvarim HaRayim. It's a big machlekes. The Shabura gives you the feeling that Malkum to be Mekel, certainly Malkum to be Machmir. It's an old fight every year. I always tell people, whoever's going to learn the Dvarim HaRayim, I remember by Rav Yashiv, came Chatzais, Rav Yashiv opened up Moed Katan. By the time it was already nightfall, Rav Yashiv was already halfway through Hilchos Avelis. So if you're going to anyways be chazing the whole Hilchos Avelis, or you're going to be learning Gans Moed Katan, from Perek Elim Galchim and whatnot, from the sugis of the Menuta and the sugis of the Avelis and whatnot. So then let him learn on that on an Erev Tisha B'Av. That's what I tell somebody on a regular year. Mashenkin tells me, yeah, it's either that or I'm not learning. You tell him, go learn. Babasali, you do whatever you can, but you learn. Whenever there's a hefta to learn, go learn. That's on a regular year. But on Tisha B'Av, that's falling out on a Sunday in Erev Shabbos and Shabbos. Erev Tisha B'Av is not a regular Erev Tisha B'Av. So here, there's a lot more looking to be makel. The Taz L'maisa brings down the Loika Ramah. The Taz brings down that on, excuse me, the Taz brings down that there's no Isser to learn Klal Uklal. Taz and Sivkot Beis. No Isser to learn Klal Uklal on Shabbos. It's Shabbos. He's Matama the Ramah. He says, you're allowed to eat meat and wine. You're allowed to eat meat and wine. If you're allowed to eat meat and wine, how in the world is it possible to not to say that there's an Isser to learn Torah on Shabbos? How can you say there's an Isser if you're allowed to have meat and wine? Now there is some Sefer, if I'm not mistaken, the some Sefer, I didn't write down the some Sefer here, I'm sorry. Oh, I forgot. I think the some Sefer was in the Tshuvas. Oh, there it is. The some Sefer in Archaim in Siman Kuf Nun Vav. That's where it was. Some Sefer in Archaim in Siman Kuf Nun Vav brings down that the reason why you're not supposed to learn on Erev Tisha B'Av is because we're afraid that on Tisha B'Av by night you'll be thinking and learning. You'll be thinking in the sugya. So to feed that, it does make a little bit sense what the Ramah is saying, that even on Tisha B'Av, which is falling on a Sunday, that on Shabbos, which is Erev Tisha B'Av, maybe you shouldn't be allowed to learn, and maybe that's Pshat Nehi with the Ramah. L'maisa, they say Ibn from the Kleisenberger, they say that the Kleisenberger, he used to say that you never mevatel a shir barabim. That would look like avelis b'farhesia. And he said the Gabi with the Chassam Sofer said that the whole reason of not learning after Chatzos is because you're going to be thinking about it on Tisha B'Av night. He says no halavai that we would be makavin to remember what we're learning, the shas that we're learning. So upon him in a regular year, it's a big shayla if you're allowed to learn on Erev Tisha B'Av. So therefore, on a year that it falls on Shabbos Erev Tisha B'Av, the Ma'aseh Me'ikra Din, it is certainly mutter to learn. If a person says, what's the difference? I'm chazering the whole Hilchos Avelis anyways. No, wasn't to learn in Hilchos Avelis. Why not? But that's l'chayra. Sorry?
What about the Ramah's psak and the Pirkei Avos here? Is that Kallus here?
Stama, it's b'farhesia. It's b'farhesia. If it's b'farhesia, you can continue. Whatever's b'farhesia, you continue. Otherwise, it looked like Avelis. Some of that was the Kleisenberger's Mahalach. Whatever looks like Avelis b'farhesia, it's not the right thing. As I meinach. Daf Yomi also. Daf Yomi. Look, if they can make the Daf Yomi shir before Chatzos, halavai. If they have a kavua dika Daf Yomi shir always after Chatzos, then the stomach's going to look a shtickle like Avelis b'farhesia. Now, the Gabe saying Pirkei Avos by yourself, so that already Pashtus is that he should Mistama not say that Pirkei Avos after Chatzos, but that's when it's by himself. It's by himself. Okay, the Gabe Sudas Mafsakas.
Why? Because Dharam Shabbatzina is neg for that reason. Why Pirkei Avos? Why be machmor more Pirkei Avos for yourself?
Chav Moira, because it came out of the words. It came out of the mouth of the Ramah. In other words, to tell a person that he can't learn on Shabbos afternoon when the Shabbos afternoon is a 7-hour afternoon, who could take a chayes on the Bittul Torah? It's a murder to Bittul Torah. To take a chayes in such a Bittul Torah is unbelievable. But Pirkei Avos, so let him say it before. People say it anyways. Beseder Tefillah and the Heilige Ramah, Shangizak and whatnot. Chav to fight with the Ramah and something like that. But when it comes to Bittul Torah, that's already pachad. Who could take a chayes in Bittul Torah? In Ma'av Da'aretz, if the Gemara in the Dharm says that the ganze Sibur for the ganze Chorban is because they were not learning, and so who could take a chayes? The Gabe eating, don't be mamayit in eating. Eat karago. Make sure you eat. If not, make sure you eat more. And if a person likes to have eggs at the shalosh shudas, let him have eggs. But he's not having it for the sake of avelis. What he's supposed to do is he's supposed to eat. Avada esk is into hate. But don't forget what it says in the Mishabur and Siman Reish Sadi and Sivkot and Daled B'Shem Sefer Chassidim, that a person's not supposed to say, I'm eating, that I should have, I mean, the Sefer Chassidim is saying, you're not supposed to say, I'm sleeping, that I should have koyach to do things tonight. Here, you're not supposed to say, I'm eating so that I should have, even though you're allowed to eat and you're allowed to sleep and you're allowed to talk on Shabbos, but you're not allowed to say, I'm eating so that I should have koyach to fast tonight. That you're not supposed to do. That you're not supposed to do. The gabe shalashudis itself, like we mentioned, eat regular, eat meat, eat wine, have zmiras. Everything is done by shkia. Everything has to be finished by shkia. When I say shkia, I probably mean a couple of minutes before shkia. And a person is allowed to eat the shalashudis together with chaveirim. He's allowed to make a zimin on the shalashudis. He's allowed to have zmiras at the shalashudis, etc., etc. Mistama. It's best if you can wash the mayim achrayim before shkia. Why should you get involved in the shaila of after shkia? Once he had shkia, no eating anymore, no drinking anymore. Does a zicher. The gabe taking all these kalik soim and all these things which supposedly make the fast easier or not. So the truth is, this is a world war because there's two major problems here. Problem number one is that you're allowed to take medicine on Shabbos. Problem number two is it's achana. I mean, that's not food. It's clearly taking something for the purpose of making it that he should be able to have an easier fast. The gabe both of these shilas, I know that they're big machlekasim. My das hakotin, obviously, but my das is that a person can certainly be mako on it. It's not medicine. I don't understand that it should be called medicine. He's a healthy person. That's why he's going to be hungry tomorrow. If you're not going to be hungry tomorrow, it means you're probably not such a healthy person, right? Or at least not me, the way I look at my guns to those. But I'll upon him, it's a healthy person. A person is healthy. There's nothing wrong with him taking medicine, especially if you're a Moshe Psak when it comes to vitamins. So the guy that not an issue. And it's true, you shouldn't say, I'm taking it for tomorrow, you should just take it. But Lachar is doing a Maisa, which is a Maisa Achana. So here, the Maisa, there's a big side when we learn Achana, and it's Hashem, we'll talk about this later, that there's a big side that the Isser of Achana is when a person is preparing. He's doing preparation, nisht preservation. If you don't say this aside, you're going to have a lot of shilos in Masechta Shabbos. There's a lot of times in Masechta Shabbos where a person has something that he's preventing from getting ruined, etc., and he's allowed to. You know, a person sees that he has a davar that's muksa and it's getting ruined. Is he allowed to cover it? The halacha is yeah. He might not be allowed to move it on Shabbos, but we paskin kli is nittel etzarich davar she'eina nittel. So if you have something that's getting ruined, he has some muksa item outside, he wants to just cover it. He's allowed to cover it on Shabbos. He obviously doesn't need that item for Shabbos. He only needs that item for Sunday because he can't even use that item on Shabbos. Why isn't that a chana? And Gans Masechta Shabbos is filled with examples like this. So preparation is what's awesome, not preservation of the item, because then you're getting the item now. My matzah right now, is I am not hungry because I just ate, and I'm trying to preserve that mitzias. So by taking this pill, I make it that my body retains more liquid and that my body retains the food. The truth is, I don't work for them and I don't know if it works. And it might be baltashkas on your money. I have no idea. But upon him, Achana is das nish. And therefore, whoever wants to take these medicines, even though I know it's a machlekes, whoever wants to take these kalei tzaim and the radema, it is mutter. The inuyim start as of Shkia, which means from Shkia, you're not supposed to be learning Torah, the biggest inui of all, to not be able to learn what you want to learn. But once you hit Shkia, starts the inuyim. And therefore, from that point, no eating, no drinking, no washing himself, etc., from the point of Shkia. The only thing is that because of Avelis Beveresia, so we don't at that point put on our slippers, and at that point we still sit on chairs. I'll go upon him during Ben Hashmoshes. The Maisa, when a person hits tzeis, each person can be his tzeis. No, at that point, he says, he takes off his shoes. At that point, he can't sit on the chair anymore. From that point, the stomach's to take off your shoes, but you just, with your feet, and that way you don't have to wash your hands. And that's the chayra. He shouldn't walk the shul with his kinnis until that point, because that would be achan. He's bringing his kinnis to shul, and his slippers, etc. He'd be carrying his slippers to shul. That would certainly be either a problem of achana or a problem of Avelis Defarhesi. Now, the Gabe Abdullah, the din is a side that on Motzei Shabbos, we don't make Besamim. The Mela, there's no Besamim this year because Motzei Tisha B'Av, there's no Besamim. And obviously, we don't make Abdullah because we're fasting. So we're going to make Abdullah on Motzei Tisha B'Av. However, we do make Barim Ma'ira Eish. People think it's a din, you have to make it in the shul. The truth is, you have a wife at home. You can make it at home for your wife, or you make it at home for your children. Some people, they wait to make it in the shul, but make sure your wife, she makes the Barim Ma'ira Eish for herself. A person that's not fasting, so the we paskin that children, the minig, I think that's the minig, I think in Derek Cloud and Cloud Yisrael, children do not make Abdullah if they're not fasting. But a lady that's fasting, the minig b'derech klal, and a person that's a chayla that's not fasting, the minig b'derech klal is that they do make Havdalah on Motzei Shabbos. A man could make Havdalah for his wife. Obviously, he won't drink the Havdalah, and his wife will drink the Havdalah. And on my shoulders, she's not going to get a beard. Grada, once he makes Havdalah, now he's Yaitse Havdalah, obviously, and he doesn't have to wait till Motzei Tisha B'Av to make Havdalah. And if she would make the Havdalah herself, for example, he's not around, he's in shul, etc., and she makes the Havdalah for herself because she's a chayla, she's allowed to make Havdalah for herself, and she'll drink the Havdalah. What do you make Havdalah on? This, as you know, it's a machlekes Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz. Eretz Yisrael, Derek Klal, the Psak HaMakubal is that there is no Chamer Medina today. We spoke about this when we spoke about Chamer Medina, and therefore the Psak are pretty much Makubal in Eretz Yisrael. Pretty much, I shouldn't say as if I know what's going on everywhere in Eretz Yisrael, but the Psak, at least in my places, is that you tell the lady to make Havdalah on grape juice. Now you can ask a question, how could she make Havdalah on grape juice? It's like an oinen. An oinen isn't allowed to have grape juice, and we know what the Sudas Mafsakes. You're not allowed to have grape juice. You're not allowed to have wine. But that's a fundamental mistake. Erev Tisha B'Av has a din of aninas, and that's why there's no meat and no wine. Tisha B'Av itself is already, the mace is covered. The base of mikdash is being charev. It no longer has a din of aninas. It's interesting hagdara. I heard it from Rabbi Yashiv, and therefore Rabbi Yashiv held that a lady that doesn't have Chamer Medina, which is the Metzias in Eretz Yisrael, at least that's what they paskin, so therefore she can make Havdalah on grape juice, even need be wine, but the Derek Klal you make on grape juice. In Chutz La'aretz, I think they're much more makel on the Shaila of Chamer Medina. Chamer Medina, we spoke about B'shaitai, what's considered Chamer Medina. Certainly, we spoke about the natural orange juice, freshly squeezed orange juice, etc., things like that. She can make Havdalah on an orange juice. You don't make Havdalah, Rabbi Yitzhak, if a lady has a heter that she doesn't fast, let's say. So not every heter starts the second that Shabbos ends. So therefore, she'll only have to make Havdalah at the point when she needs to eat. So Mamela, if she's not eating until the morning, she'll make Havdalah in the morning. Obviously, you don't make a Bari Ma'orei Ha'esh in the morning. You only make a Bari Ma'orei Ha'esh at night. And obviously, the next night, like we said, no Eish, no Besamim. And that's the Seder HaDvarim. This is the Seder HaDvarim, Legabe Havdalah, and Legabe the Bari Ma'orei Ha'esh. That's what I say is Be'erech Pachas Yoiser. Now I'm going to, just for one more moment, I just want to talk about, once we started talking about Motzei Tisha B'Av, I wanted to tell the Olam, interesting shaila that I had. Tell me what you think about it, Rabbi Say. There's an interesting Bir Halacha, which is not so known. I think it's not so known. But Derek Klal, I would say it's not such a common Bir Halacha anyway, so it's nishkeferlich if it's not so known, I suppose. The Bir Halacha in Tavkuf Nunches says, we know that on Motzei Tisha B'Av, where mamshich the hanhagas, Min Gashkenaz for sure is mamshich the hanhagas of the 9 days, but basically mamshich those hanhagas until chatzos. Until chatzos, that was the minig. That's the minig mamshich the hanhagas, which means no music and no meat, no wine, and still no laundry. And okay, maybe on showers to be a bit more makel, take a cold shower or something like that. We're basically mamshich the minhagim of the 9 days until Yud Bachatzos. That's the Derek Klal. Now, during the 9 days, let's say somebody wants to have a potato from the cholent, so that the place can say that our minig of not having meat and wine extends to the potato from the cholent. You know, you have French fries that are, in a deep fryer, that same deep fryer has schnitzel in it and mamish. So then those French fries you can't have during the 9 days. Those French fries would make you fleshik. So whatever makes you fleshik, that you can't have during the 9 days. If you take a potato and you cook it in a fleshik pot, obviously you can have that potato during the 9 days because that doesn't make you fleshik. That's the general rule during the 9 days. It comes again to Bir Halacha and Tavkuf Nunches, and he says interesting kula, very interesting. He brings down interesting kula that the halacha of not eating meat and wine on the 10th of Av doesn't apply to a tavshil shel basar. That means the potato from the cholent you're allowed to have on Motzei Tisha B'Av, Sunday night. Sunday night you'll be allowed to have the potato from the cholent. Today you can't have the potato from the cholent, but Sunday night you could have the potato from the cholent. Why it's like that? I guess the whole thing is an extra chumrah. That extra chumrah wasn't noyig by a tavshil shel basar. It was only noyig by meat and by chicken, but not by potato from the cholent. Okay, nice. how many of us after the fast want the potato from the challah? I think most of us don't want the potato from the challah. So I'll tell you an interesting shayla that I had. Tell me what you think about it, everybody say. I was thinking, what's a very common thing that a person very well might want this year after the fast? Very well might want, and very well will probably have. Many of us have on a Friday night, we have chicken soup. After a fast, the person is weak and he wants to have chicken soup. It's a very normal thing. Okay, maybe when it's this hot, you can't think about chicken soup, but I know myself, das ist jüdische Penicillin bei uns in Menschen. As in those tacos, I get to the fear, nach the fast, he wants to have a little chicken soup. Avadi's not going to have any chicken with the chicken soup, he'll just have the broth. And a lot of people, it's a very good thing. He's weak after a fast, he'll have some chicken soup. I was thinking that the fetus beer lacha, we could be makel to let him have chicken soup after the fast. And it's a very normal thing. He has it in the fridge still, and it's going to go to waste otherwise, and it's Sunday night. And I was thinking, this would be a gewaltige heter to tell people that they can have chicken soup after the fast. And this was my idea. Every day this week, I went to various Talmidei Chachamim and I asked them what they thought. What's the shayla, Rabbi Isai? Is because in Yeridea, there's a very big shayla. If chicken soup is the way I just said, if chicken soup is exactly taka like the potato, which is in the challah, because if you think about it, it is. The potato in the challah has the taste going straight from the meat. And exactly what's chicken soup? The same thing. Your chicken soup used to be water. You put a chicken in there, and then the water sucked out all the time. It's the same thing as the potato. What's the difference between the potato and what's the difference between that? Now, it happens to be the Taz in Yeridea in Siman Peites, which seems to really say this. He brings down really this Tudayas the Taz brings, but he brings down a Rabbeinu Yeruchim that says, and it has to do with your idea that there were certain cheetahs that held that you don't become fleishiks from a tavshel shel basar. Okay, Hitaka says that if it's a thick chicken soup, he says then it's not considered like the potato from the challah. So I was wondering what's a thick chicken soup. So the Rabbeinu Yeruchim says it means one with vegetables. Now I'm a little convinced. I got confused. What's the difference if it has vegetables? And so I looked at the Rabbeinu Yeruchim and he says, well, when it has vegetables, sometimes there'll be a little piece of chicken in there that you won't see. And when you won't see it, you'll come to eat it. And that for sure is not considered like a tavshel shel basar. So I was thinking that, okay, so let's say a person, he has chicken soup and he sees 100% that there's no pieces of chicken over there. And the whole thing over here is only a minig that we're being machmir on even more. And it's chicken and it's might say tishah b'av and it's very healthy for a person to have chicken soup. I thought there's a big market to be makel. I asked one Talmid Chacham, he told me vaday nisht. I asked another Talmid Chacham, and he told me he's not sure. So then I went to ask Rav Avigdor Nebenzahl, the Rav in the old city, the Langeson, and he told me he's maskim, might say tishah b'av, a person can have chicken soup this year. So that's a shtickle kula. No, alavai by them, Rabbi said we'll be eating anyways with the mamish, with Asuda Shlema, we'll be having the Levyasim Bez Hashem. But if not, so then you can remember me while you have your chicken soup on Sunday night. Now, Rabbi say, doesn't that can the halachas of, I suppose, this year of the Meyuchadika surah that we have no Erev Tishah B'Av. Now I'm going to take a few minutes, Rabbi say. Just excuse me a moment. I'm sorry, you all hear me again, right? I'm going to take a few moments now, Boisai, and go over basic rules of Tisha B'Av. I know that, first of all, most of the Olam obviously knows the basic rules of Tisha B'Av. Unfortunately, we've been here before, Boisai. Second of all, if I'm not mistaken, there have been some shiurim already on the Hilchos Tisha B'Av. I'm understanding that Good already spoke about some of the halachas of Talmud Torah, etc. I'm just going to now be kitzer, be stuck in most of the halachas that come up over here, and aim base measures for like chiddush. So first of all, and this is basically now I'll be going derech Tavkuf Nun Dalet. Tavkuf Nun Dalet. What's the question? The Tavkuf Nun Dalet. So the Gemara says in Tainis and Daf Lamed, Tan Rabbanan kol mitzvahs anoyigis be'avel anoyig b'tisha b'av, and therefore it's the regular rules of Avelis anoyig and Tisha B'av. And it's also in addition, also b'chila and also b'shtia and b'sicha b'nila sandal. Of course, that's on an avelis too, tashma shamita, and it's also the grace b'tayr. Now let's go derech these halachas one by one, and we'll try to see if there's any chedushim. First of all, Talmud Torah, Dosavada. We know that Talmud Torah is aser on Tisha B'av, but agav nashim are also included in this iser. Ladies also not allowed to learn Torah on Tisha B'av. The Mechaber brings down that you're allowed to learn Eoiv and the Perushim of Eoiv. Now it's an interesting time maybe to learn Eoiv. When else does a person learn Eoiv? But the Mechaber brings down you can learn Eoiv. The halacha is that you're allowed to learn most of your Mio, just not the parts of where the Goyim are going to get hacked, only the parts of where, unfortunately, the Yidden are getting hacked. Eicha, of course, you're allowed to learn. The Kinnitz, you're allowed to learn. Perkei L'Megalchim, you're allowed to learn. The halacha is that the Gemara in Gittin, from Daf Nunei to Daf Nun Ches, you're allowed to learn. The Gemara in Sanhedrin, there's a Gemara there in Tzadi Zayin, and Kuftala, these are all Dvarim. You do him. A person, of course, is allowed to read the Holocaust stories. Obviously, I mean ones that are written, Kafi, Hashkafaseinu, and Avada, a person could read such things on Tisha B'av. Hilchos Tisha B'av, you're allowed to learn on Tisha B'av. Hilchos Avelis, you're allowed to learn on Tisha B'av. What about Musar? Are you allowed to learn Musar on Tisha B'av? So the Meiri and Moed Katan and Davchaf Aleph brings down Yira Ali, Shloi Neser Divrei Torah Aval Ela Derech Limud Aval Ayin B'Svarim HaMa'oirer Liboy Shel Adam L'Tshuva is Loi Neser. And Adar Rabba says the Meiri, it's Roy, so it's Roy for a person to learn the Sifrei Musar. And the Ma'aseh did Shaila, I asked Rav Yashiv, and Rav Yashiv said that he's allowed to learn it. He's not doing it for the purpose of Limud HaTorah. He's doing it for the purpose to be Misayrer. And he is allowed. The Shevet Levi says like that also. And thus is the Iker Adin, that a person is allowed to learn Musar on Tisha B'av. But Rabbi said Musar doesn't mean learning up a whole shtickle in the Michtav Eliyahu and a gewaltige Amkistik shtickle and the Leiv Eliyahu. It means Musar Svarim. Musar Svarim. The Stama also to read stories about Tzadikim is probably allowed on Tisha B'av, because that also is Ma'oyer a person to Tshuva, the Chulei. Obviously, Shtay Mikra V'Echad Targum is not allowed on Tisha B'av. There's a Chakira in the Limud of Torah on Tisha B'av, the Geder of the Limud of Torah. Is it the Pshat that on Tisha B'av there's no Chiyuv of Talmud Torah? Or is it the Pshat that Pashtetzav was a Chiyuv of Talmud Torah? Just that the Chiyuv of Talmud Torah is to learn the things that you're allowed to learn, all the things that we just mentioned. Or no, maybe the Pshat is there's no Chiyuv of Talmud Torah. It's hard to believe that there's no Chiyuv of Talmud Torah because, I mean, in like Risi Yom and Valayla, and it's hard to believe that there's could be such a thing that it says Man Shalay Yom Valayla, like the Gemara says in Menachos and Tav Saditah. It's hard to believe that there is no Chiyuv of Limud Torah. They have the Yukim. There's even in the Mishnah Diak, the Mishnah Tavkuf Mentes, Tzivkat Vav says that when you come to Volat Tzion, you don't say Vani Zois Brisi because it looks like you're Mekayim the bris. V'oid Aser b'divrei Torah. V'loy shayich loymar v'loy yomash b'picha. So they want to bring a diak that it's not shayich to, you can't say imloy brisi because on this day lo yamusha mipicha. You can't say the words v'lo yamusha mipicha. How could you say lo yamusha mipicha? Right, today there's no limud Torah. So today's the day where there is a yamusha mipicha. In other words, what does lo yamusha mipicha mean? It means that we will always learn. So here, how can you say we'll always learn? Because on today, lo yamusha mipicha. Lo yamusha mipicha means that today we are not learning. Is that a diak? I don't know. If I say a yid that can't look at all this farm in this room. If I say a yid that's told he can't learn all this, that says yamusha mipicha. We tell you what you're allowed to learn, and we tell you what you're not allowed to learn. I don't know. If I say that's a murdik chiddush, Yarich Laner and Sukkah and Avchavim with Beis. He says in kazed davar in the ganze Welt, there's no such thing. Avada, there's always a chiyuv. His lashon is bar, but Gemara aval is chayiv b'kol mitzvahs amur b'Torah. So he brings a kasha from the Ritva, and he brings down v'nis taiti yishleimar arei ein aser rak b'divrei Torah misamkim leiv avadina avelis mutter v'im kain avadi could be mekayim the mitzvah of limud Torah. And they say this lemaisa is all the years I heard from Rabbi Yashiv that Avad on Tisha B'av he's chayiv to learn. You're chayiv to learn Rabbi Yisai. It's not a day off from learning. Chalila. Avad is chayiv to learn on Tisha B'av like every other day.
Somebody asked, how could Rabbi Yashiv learn Hilchos Avelis? It's pashut that his limud was not just a superficial limud. Everything Rabbi Yashiv did was be'amkus godlebs. My Oidi learned Hilchos Avelis already 100 times. But why was he muted to do it?
So let's see, the gather of that, the Taz's Lashon here is merely the feel of the mokim, the mutter lil moed, it's hainish yom abshutim shaldvar. Avaloi derech pilpul. The Lashon of the Taz is that you shouldn't learn derech pilpul. This is Mishabura quotes over here. And he says, I feel here, because why? Because it's also Mishum that it's going to give him a tremendous simcha. So the chayra, everything Rabbi Yashiv's most basic by him is our biggest Ian. The chayra, that's the question being asked, and we're not supposed to really be learning the Ian. Again, they do bring down that the Chazon Ish tells you are allowed to learn the Ian, but by me, I don't hear so much the idea. I don't hear the kasha so much, because all it does means is not to be going into it into depth and working hard. When a person works hard to try to sometimes he's looking for trouble, he's trying to have a deeper avana. It means to learn on your simple level. When the person goes to the deeper level and he pushes himself to go to the deeper level, that's what generates the simcha basayt. The accomplishment of that is what generates the simcha basayt, the amelis, etc. So it doesn't matter if your level of pshitas is a higher level of pshitas than somebody else. I saw Shlomo Zalman in Alicha Shleima. He brings down a lashon. Doesn't mean just to fly through and not understand. Yomad bavana. All it means is not to do more, not to be going more. So each person on his own has to know what that is. What's considered as Ian and what's considered as Bekiyas. I know that the Chazon Ish was certainly makel to learn with a chavrusa, and if a person will not be able to learn these things without a chavrusa, certainly could learn with a chavrusa. The Gabe Tefillah. The Gabe Tefillah and Sivdala, the Shulchan Aruch Daf and Dal discusses Tefillah, what is allowed to be said. So Mishabura says a lashon here that it seems that you're allowed to be, it's mutter to be koirei the Kol Seder Ayoyin, all the Seder Ayoyin, Parshas Korbanis, Ezer Mekayman, and the Medrash of Rabbi Shmuel. So the Mishabura goes with a Havan over here that you're only allowed to daven what you have to daven, nothing extra. What does that mean? So, for example, Mishabura says, Parshas Tamid, you're allowed to say. He says, Pita Maktoiris, he says you're not allowed to say. And Parshas Akedah, he says you're not allowed to say. Now, it's things that you're not mechuyev to say, he says you're not allowed to say. Now, you have to know the Aruch HaShulchan goes not like this. The Aruch HaShulchan says anything in the Siddur that's your normal, that's what you say. You say the Akedah, you say the Akedah. It's just interesting. Sometimes you have people, they come to shul, they never say the Akedah. They never say Pita Maktoiris, they never say any stuff. They come to shul on Tisha B'Av. Anyways, what are they going today? They're not going to work today, so they have a lot of time. And they say the Akedah, and they say the whole Perkei Tehillim, and they say Perkei Avos, and they say, B'Mem Adlikin, and whatever. Etc. I don't know. The Aruch HaShulchan says, it's true that you're allowed to say whatever's in the Siddur. But then Mishabura says you should only say what's included. So I guess whatever's your normal Seder of davening, the Aruch HaShulchan for sure is make on. Mishabura is not. Mishabura is only make on the things that you're mechuyev to be saying. The Gabi Kriya Shema Lamita, I heard once from Chaim Kanievsky that only the Parsha Rishayna, and that's it. You only say the Hamapil, and you say the Kriya Shema, the first Parsha, and that's it. And that's why the Mishabura says you don't say the Parshas of Tefillin, you don't say the Parshas of Tefillin. The Gabi Ani Mamin, I saw the Divrei Malkiel in Chelek Vav in Simen Tes. He brings down Ani Mamin, Vadai Mutter, that's the Chlal, the Seder of the Tefillah. And you're allowed to say the Ani Mamin, and he also says you're allowed to say yes or Schiris. The Gabi Tilim is actually a Leket Yosher. Leket Yosher is down in the Trumas Hadeshin. He brings down in Ar Chaim in page 112 that he said Tilim you're allowed to say on Tisha B'Av. He got held you are allowed to say Tilim on Tisha B'Av. It's Yadua that the Lavush, Tavkuf and Dalit and Siv Beis seems today you can't say Tilim on Tisha B'Av. Unless it's for a chayler or a pekuach nefesh situation, etc., which Agav the Divrei Malkiel there says himself that it's for a chayler for sure. You're allowed to say Tilim on Tisha B'Av, but the Mishabura and Simchat and Dayan says that you're allowed to say Tilim from Mincha time and onward. If you're saying it derech bakasha, legabe nashim, certainly there's a makom to be makel. I would say, look, is there a makom for Mincha time for sure? You could be makel. For ladies, certainly a makom to be makel to say. In the morning to say Tilim, if a person has a Seder Dvarim that he usually says in Tilim, it's better probably to say it after Chatzais. It's better to say it after Chatzais. But Me'ikra Din, there could be a Mokim to be Mekel. I understood from Rabbi Yashiv that a person that says every day Tilim it is mutter for him to talk and say Tillin, but that you have to ask, I guess, the local Orthodox rabbi. Because a goimel, the Maisa, you do say on Tisha B'Av, Sha'atzali called Sarki is minagim, but the Mishabur Psak is that you do say Sha'atzali called Sarki. Somebody that eats on Tisha B'Av, he is a chayla that eats on Tisha B'Av. So somebody asked, can you ask in the Shelos Rav and Chelik Beis, Perak Lamed Gimel, does he say Al Naris Bavel, which in these days the Olam should be saying Al Naris Bavel. So I would have thought that he could say Al Naris Bavel because it's maybe Dvar Maroyim. And Rechaim Kanievsky seemed to say not like that. He seemed to say not like that, and that Meikar Adin, you should not say Al Naris Bavel if you have to eat on Tisha B'Av. The Gabe, who doesn't fast, the Shteitach, these Shilas, I can't in public give public psakim. These are things that you have to ask a Shaila, but just to know who has to ask the Shaila, even though the Shulchan Aruch says that a Muberes and a Menekes has to fast, a lady that's pregnant and a lady that's nursing has to fast, but the lady that's pregnant and nursing will said to know that they have to ask a Shaila. There are situations where certainly a pregnant woman is considered a Chayla, and certainly Rav Moshe has Agdara in a different place where a person's a Chayla is a person that the entire body is gestert and weak and different than other people, etc. A lady that is vomiting and nauseous the whole entire day and feels like she's nauseous, and if she won't eat, she's going to feel that way the whole day, certainly has a shayla to ask. We'll leave it like that, and you'll on your own realize what the answer could potentially be. But you do have to ask a shayla because it makes a difference. Sometimes they'll tell you to fast at night, sometimes they'll tell you to fast al kapanim until chatzos, and sometimes it's important to know that on Tisha B'Av B'derech Klal we do not give shiurim because Akama Chazal weren't misakin it. It's just they weren't misakin the fast b'chlal. Yom Kippur is a whole different type of mitzias. There are poskim that say that in situations where it's enough to just drink, then she would have had to just to drink, not to eat. Same thing when it comes to a menekes. A menekes l'maisa is a woman who's nursing. If she's a strong nurse and everything's fine, she does fast. But if she's very, very thirsty, or she could use her milk, certainly she has to ask the shayla, because certainly there are situations where we make that a menekes does not fast on Tisha B'Av. And again, like I said, she has to ask. At certain times we'll tell her just to drink, and certain times we're going to tell her to akoponim, excuse me, to try to do at night. So therefore, please ask, are you allowed this? A lady that had a baby within 30 days, even though she should not fast. A lady that had a baby within 30 days shouldn't fast, and she should ask a shayla after 30 days. She should also ask a shayla. Chayla shein by sakana should not fast. What the agdara of chayla shein by sakana is beyond the scope of the shir, and the person has to ask such a shayla. Taking medicine, the etzim medicine, there's no problem in taking medicine on Tisha B'Av. If you have to take it with, if you can't get down the medicine without taking a liquid, so B'derech Klal will let you take something and plaguing the liquid to take it down with some vinegar or something of that nature. If a person can't take the medicine down without a little bit of water, so then it depends. If he's somebody it's considered a chayla that we would be makel, they could take down the water, and that's a shayla. You'd have to ask. A person, obviously we don't wash our hands on Tisha B'Av, etc., just till the knuckles after the bathroom, etc. Even for nagelvas in the morning, if a person has to wash for birchas kehanim, or if you have to wash the tilsidayim for bread, so then the halacha is that you do wash the whole entire hand. The gabe washing one's mouth out on Tisha B'Av, so here the Mishabura is a bit more machmir, even though on a regular fast day he's a bit more makel. Here's a bit more machmir. If a person's bitzar and he's bitzar, maybe if everyone around him is bitzar, there is a market to be makel to use mouthwash is ironically better because it's something that you're not going to come to swallow. So to be makel to be makel to wash around with mouthwash or toothpaste and spit it out. If he's bitzar, there is a market to be makel. If he has creams to chadoima because he has pains or pimples or all types of things, those types of creams are mutter. Deodorant is a shayla in the price skin. If the person has used deodorant before, which is going to be suffice. I mean, it says on the can, I think 24 hours for Paisai. So if he doesn't have to get involved in the shayla, then why should he get involved in the shayla? But miyakar din, there is a malkum to be makel on deodorant. Nila sastandal, obviously we know we don't wear shoes on Tisha B'Av. On Tisha B'Av, even children, the minig is even children, I think, that are certainly children that are bar chinuch we certainly are machmir on the children that are bar chinuch. And many people are machmir even on children that are not a bar chinuch, but obviously if it's a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, so then me'ikar din, obviously the child could wear shoes. Tashmish Amita, what's Nageya is the harchakas are mutter. There are no harchakas on Tisha B'Av. The Mishabura brings down that we're not machmir on harchakas. Excuse me. We're not machmir on harchakas. L'akapan and Nageya, we are machmir on. It's interesting. The Mishabura, the Shartzian, brings down that Tafka became kippur that the nashim are mikashtais. Mashenkin on Tisha B'Av, that they are menavel themselves. So the Tisha B'Av, if they go mikushatis, if they look nice on Tisha B'Av, you should be machmir even by yoyim. So al kapanim, harchakas, we are mekalon. Megia is more of the place to be machmir. Sheilas shalom, you don't say good morning, the Mishabura says. You probably shouldn't say hello. You probably shouldn't say good night to people on Tisha B'Av. Mustama, you probably shouldn't say how's it going, and that's really not supposed to be schmoozing. Certainly, matanas you're not supposed to. I was once in a shul by Rav Yashiv, and there was a bris, and he did say Mazel Tov. So you see, you're allowed to say Mazel Tov on Tisha B'Av. Excuse me. The gabe, the schmoozing, the Ramah brings down. Kol shkein asal laharbis b'dvarim. He brings down by Hilchos Avelis. The Mishnah Berurah and Tavkuf Mendes says certainly not to be schmoozing, etc. on Tisha B'Av. The Gabe Malacha, Mishnah brings down, even after Hainu, afilu b'makom shenagu latzais, afilu achatzais, even if there's a place where the minig is to do work after chatzais. I wonder, Rabbi Yisai, if on a Sunday, you could say the minig in America is to do work. You all know what I mean. So I wonder if this year, Yesh Lachkor, Tisha B'Av that's Chal on Shabbos, or Tisha B'Av that's Chal on Sunday, do we say the minig of Chutz La'aretz is not to do work, because on Sunday it's not really so much the minig to do work, from what I remember from the Hain, and therefore, after Chatzais, maybe we shouldn't be doing work. But the Mishabur brings down anyways, any work you're going to do, it's mashma, al-kain, afshim mutter, maybe it's mutter in a place to do work, but he says not to be nimshach into it so much, not to be nimshach into the work so much, to not be mesiach das from Yavelis. The Gabi writing down Chedushay Torah that you have. So even though there are poiskim the Shar Tshuva and Sivkat and Yud Gimel, sorry?
The side of the Isser Malacha, the side of the Isser Malacha is only Hesach Das, or we're going Medina and Mahaga that Malacha is us, and there's two reasons.
Well, the Siba, it seems to be the Isser was because of Hesach Das. Excuse me. It seems to be the Siba was because of Hesach Das, but it seems it was the Klala of Ein Roy Simon Bracha because of that. That's what it seems to be. It seems that the Getter though was because they didn't want a person to be Nesiach Das.
So the big question here in America is, do employees have to take vacation days? That question will come right.
In the stomach, you can't say after Chatzais that they're mechuyev to. I would imagine that on, I don't know, Yesh Laden on a Sunday, if that's the normal day to take off. You're saying for Sunday
in America, the Sunday doesn't count. But let's say it's during Chayil. Are you mechuyev to take a vacation day? You only have 10 vacation days a year. Are you mechuyev to take one of those for the Tisha B'Av of your employee?
I can't say it's chayiv, but certainly he would get a bracha. Can't say chayiv. Can't say chayiv. The Gabi, if a person has to write down Kedushay Torah on Tisha B'Av, the Shar Tshuva brings down Tzivkat and Yud Gimel that one day he's not going to forget. The Aruch HaShulchan says in Hilchos Avelis, he says, don't take chances. In your day, he says over there, now I don't know, over there, he's talking about an oval. So an oval 7 days. Maybe that's a bigger chance than just one day. So Yesh Laden, but certainly he can write down Rashi Prakim, things that'll remind him what he should, later on. Walking around, draying around, Mishnah Berurah, Tavkuf Nantasi, Cotton, Mem Dalet, Mem Aleph, and Tisha B'Av is not a day for walking around and having a nice time. It's a day for introspection, Rabbi Yisai. It's a day for a person to be trying to figure out, what can I do to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash? How can I improve my Ben Adam L'Makim, my Ben Adam L'Chaveiroi? How can I finally get rid of these 60 times it says between the kinnis and the 4 times in the Eicha, the word Eicha, and start coming, how does it come to this matziv? The matziv that I'm in, the matziv that Klal Yisrael's in, and he has to come to an introspection and not be taking a tiyul and hanging out and schmoozing. It's not a day for reading newspapers. Shabur brings down Ankei Kach. It's certainly a baseline. It's a day for introspection. The person's weak, he could take a nap, but it's not a day. It's a day to be trying to focus, not to be focused and to be wallowing in tsar. Trying to figuring out, like the Miri said, how can I not be in this situation again? What can we do all of life and not be in this situation again? No, Maisa, it seems that for the next couple of weeks, that this is for at least for myself, this is the last shia that I'm going to give for the next couple of weeks. Don't worry, Mitzvah Shem, we're going to be back in Mitzvah Shem. It happens to be that we in the Kallus HaGuder Abayisai, this Kallus is no shaila, a major stepping stone in the binyan of the Beis HaMikdash. If the Gemara Nedarim says Amah of the Aretz, that what was the Aretz of it because of the like they weren't mechabed the Heilige Torah, but birchu b'Torah tchila. This birchu b'Torah tchila, this entire mitzvah of the Kallus of the Aguda that we have every single day. As Zefil Torah was learned, as Zefil Torah, how many shiurim, how much Torah was learned. It's half of the fella. It's no suffix that of all the great schusim that Klal Yisrael had, this is the top schusim, a shir that never ends. It's the korban tamid, It's half of a fella. Avifel ano, Zefil ano, what the Kodesh Baruch Hu gets from the limud Torah that goes on over here. Half of the fella. This limud Torah is a building block in the binyan Beis HaMikdash. B'mheira, b'yameinu, amen. Whoever is going to be back in Mitzvah Shem, when I come back in Elul, I'm looking forward to Baisai. We're going weiter in Mitzvah Shem. By then in Mitzvah Shem, like I said, the shiurim will be in Hilchos Kodshim, in Beis HaMikdash, in Hilchos Tyrus, in B'mheira, b'yameinu, amen. How weiter? Okay, so Shakayach, Rabbi Gottesman, Rabbi Pearl, Dr. Lederreich, Yedidim Toivim, Murdik, Halavayla, be your fush lema for Moshe, Dov, and Hendel, and Mitzvah Shem. We'll have Mitzvah Shem, the Suras Toivis, and Shiach Tzekenu, B'mheira, b'yameinu, amen.